All right. Yeah. All right. So first, let's kind of introduce you.
Yeah.
Is it okay to give your last name?
Oh yeah.
Okay.
Don. C-O-T-T-E-R. Cotter.
Yeah.
Don. Yeah.
I'm here with Don. We're in his residence in Canton, Massachusetts. We're about to conduct the interview for the World War II Veterans era. So, Don, why did you join the service? Were you drafted, and how old were you at the time?
Yeah, I was drafted and I was 24 years old.
What prior to you being drafted, what were you doing before you joined the service?
I was 4 years in college,
Huh.
and I just got out of college.
What did you study in college? What was your intention?
I majored in history.
History.
Got a Bachelor of Science in history.
When being drafted into the service, what branch of the service were you drafted into?
Air Force. I was in the Air Force.
And at the time, how did your parents feel about you being drafted, considering you just finished college and had the rest of your life ahead of you?
Well, like any other family, they were all reticent about losing their kids to the Army, Navy, or whatever. But everyone went, 99% got drafted and they showed up and went into whatever the Army or Navy or Air Force wanted to do. There was no question about going to Canada or anything like that. The whole country was back to war,
Now, you mentioned earlier, prior to the interview, that you also had 3 brothers in the service.
Yeah, we had 3 brothers, so we all went in eventually.
Mm-hmm.
And 3 were out of 4 were drafted. 1 enlisted, So, but we all went in, we all got out. I was the only one who went overseas, frankly. See, in World War II, there was 14 million under arms, and there was only about 3 million actually did any fighting,
Mm-hmm.
The other 10, 11 million were all backups,
In terms of the training, the fighting, where did you do your basic training?
Camp Devens.
Camp Devens.
Yeah, in Massachusetts.
Now, upon the training and being drafted into the Air Force, was there a culture shock when you came into contact with Americans from all over the country that had been drafted like yourself or enlisted?
No, not really. I was getting used to the people from down south, out west, and the big cities and everything else,
So just adapting to kind of...
Adapt and
yeah.
getting along with people,
Any major problems at the...
No problem.
No. So everybody pretty much was, had the camaraderie.
Yeah, that's true.
Were there any, when you think back upon your basic training, is there any specific or, kind of climactic issues that you can, came out of that for you, or?
No, the basic training was the usual, 8 or 10 or 12 weeks of margin, calisthenics, little classroom work, and things like that, It was just getting in shape, really.
Were you aware of your assignment at the time of basic training, or was that something that you and your fellow, soldiers that you dreaded to find out at the end of training? It was.
I was fortunate because at the end of basic training, they sent me to Westover Field, and I automatically was in the Air Force, So I missed the infantry, tanks, any of that business,
in terms of the zone of combat that you were involved in, that would be the Pacific Theater?
Yeah, I went to Pacific finally, and ended up in the Hawaiian Islands for the next 20 months.
Now, you arrived in Hawaii after the attack on Pearl Harbor.
Oh yeah, it was.
How was on your arrival in Hawaii, how was the mindset of the people there after being, attacked?
Well, the local people next were anti-Japanese, you know, after going through Pearl Harbor. But the ordinary civilians, they just had their usual day jobs and worked in the air depot and places like that.
Was it something that loomed over everybody day by day, or was it kind of not spoken about as it was taboo?
No, by the time I got there, it was everybody would tell you where they were during the attack, you know. But I worked in the air depot, and the air depot in Hawaii was at Hickam Field, and they had the bombers in there. They did the maintenance of them, and they had all civilian workers, you know.
Mm-hmm.
They brought them over from the States, so they brought over 200 or 300 at a time. So it was like a civilian job, really.
Yeah.
You know? Yeah.
Now you were in the Pacific Theater against the primarily the Japanese. Now, do you think that the Pacific Theater was more important than the European, or how would you weigh that in terms of importance?
No, to be objective, I think the European thing was the most important of the two. You know, knowing Hitler and Mussolini and what they did. I think we had to finish that war and then go into face Japan.
Mm-hmm.
Of course, being over there, we thought it'd be a lot more longer period of time. Then the bombs came over, the A-bombs, and that pretty much ended the war over in the Pacific. You know.
Was there a constant awareness of the European theater where you were stationed, or was it something that was just kind of, you didn't really know what was going on until?
Well, we had the Stars and Stripes and the Army, you know, papers, so we were up to date what's happening pretty much all over the world. You know.
Did the paper itself tend to focus more on the European theater than the
I'd
Pacific?
say they did, yeah, definitely, you know.
Just due to the, I mean, for lack of better words, the figures of Hitler and Mussolini, like you
Yeah,
said,
the atrocities.
They're more well known.
Yeah, that's true.
Now, in terms of the Japanese, I use the word hatred a little openly, but did you find that during the time of war, did you hate the Japanese? And if you did it come naturally, or was it something that you had to conjure up?
I guess you conjure it up because of Pearl Harbor, you know, and there was a hatred over in even Hawaii, you know, because although they were local, faithful Japanese working around you, you know, you didn't really trust them, didn't trust any Japanese at that time. Mm-hmm. It was there was a real hatred, I'd say, throughout the country, and it had to be after the sneak attack in Pearl Harbor, you know.
Did you find, besides the attack on Pearl Harbor, was there propaganda directed towards the Japanese? Did the military kind of issue, like, did they paint the Japanese as savages, or did they leave that open to your determination?
I think they had propaganda, not as bad as in the European War, you know, but there was propaganda against the Japanese, naturally, you know.
Do you think that because of that reason, do you think the war in the Pacific was a racist war on both sides, the Japanese versus Americans and Americans versus Japanese?
I think it was racist. You know, they hated us, we hated them, and we had good cause to do it, whereas they didn't have any cause. Their cause was just they needed more land, you know, and what they did was despicable, is what Roosevelt said, you know, after Pearl Harbor.
So in your respects, I mean, it was basically American survival versus Japanese expansion.
That's all. That's all it was.
The in terms of your combat experience, What's the extent of the action you saw?
I didn't see anything. I didn't saw no action whatsoever.
Primarily from the
Yeah,
background.
to be honest with you, my job was to write the history of the Hawaiian Air Depot, you know, and he had a major that he did much of the work, interviewing people, pictures, after the bombing, things like that. And during the war they had a history of each unit, and they made 4 copies. One copy ended in the Pentagon, the others were distributed in the commands, you know. So my job was kind of simple once it was edited, wrapped up and bound and all that, you know.
Was there, so in your position in Hawaii, it was you felt relatively secure. Was there did you have an overwhelming fear internally that things might change? Was there a danger looming to you that?
No.
No.
By the time I got there, there still was a blackout, but you could come and go and carry on your normal life, you know, without any fear of, you know, Japs. Japs were so far. By that time, they were past Midway, Guam, so we were pretty secure, very secure, in fact, you know.
The now, in terms of your 3 brothers, were they were all lucky enough to make it out of the war as well?
All 3 came home.
Did any of them see direct combat action?
I had one brother who was ready to ship out with a combat force to the Pacific. Then he didn't pass a physical. He had a enlarged ankle from playing soccer and football, so he flunked. You could say he flunked the physical.
Mm-hmm.
So he got discharged finally. So, and the
Awesome.
other 2 never made it. They were down south and out west, but
Mm-hmm.
no, they were, you know, at their age, one was in his 40s and one was 38, so they were pretty fireproof too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's not like today where they actually, have the age cut off.
Oh, no, no. They were drafting people up to age 40, which was ridiculous, you know. But they eventually let the 40-year-old people out.
Now, in terms of, your superior officers and orders you were given, and not just in terms of your own experience, but from what you saw as a whole, do you feel that, the majority, well, on 2 sides, do you feel that your superior officers were trustworthy, and do you think that overall they had a good grasp of what was going on, and the men felt, like you and the men felt secure and safe?
Oh yeah, definitely, you know. There was a lot of total integrity in the people who were majors, colonels, and a lot of them came from World War I, you know. They were businessmen, really, that were, they were in the reserve, so they just naturally went into the service, you know. So there was no combat decisions or anything like that. It was pretty much maintaining the airplanes that we had there, the bombers, the fighter planes, things like that.
Mm-hmm. Did you ever refuse to obey an order from a superior officer?
No.
No, there was no need.
No, definitely. Where do you want your desk?
Yeah. So at the time, that was pretty much not even an option. It was.
I worked in a glass brick building, and it was like going to work every day.
Mm-hmm.
You had your cafeteria and coffee counters, and had secretaries and civilian people, you know.
Now where you worked in the depot, you said there were bombers and planes.
Yeah, they had the whole. It was right. Hickam Field is right next to Pearl Harbor,
Mm-hmm.
And during the attack, they got hit badly. You can feel in all the Tarpac and all the barracks and all that business. That ought to be all built up again. But those hangars, they'd line up 10 or 15 planes while they're working on them, you know.
The planes and bombers that were under your care and in your depot, were they in constant action, or was it more of a repair and?
They pretty much repaired them, got them out, and sent them forward to the other combat places, you know. But they were medium aircraft, pretty much. We didn't have any B-29s, B-17s, B-24. Didn't have them. It had medium bombers, pretty much.
Mm-hmm. Now, besides your time in Hawaii, did you have any time in Europe, whether it would be on leave or did they? No.
So, I never went to Europe.
No. How did the during or after the war? How did the Japanese people react to you being in uniform or being an American soldier?
I don't think I came in contact with any of them, really.
Really?
Yeah, back in the States by that time. Things quieted down. VJ Day came, and it was pretty much everyone was trying to get home, you know. And I got home fairly quickly. I was home, and it ended in August. I was home by Christmas, so I was very fortunate, you know.
What and what year was that? Was it 1945 Christmas?
45, I'd say, yeah, because we get married in 46.
46.
Yeah.
46.
45 Christmas, yeah.
The now this being it's 2007, it's 62 years after the war. How do you feel now, looking back, like upon your experience with, you know, in terms of how you felt about the Japanese then, and how you feel about them now? What you think the war has meant to you on a whole?
Well, at the time we hated the Japanese, or I did, and I guess every other American did. But as the years went by, they started to industrialize and go into the manufacture of electronics, cars, and whatnot. I always said I'd never buy a Japanese car. I ended up buying a little Isuzu truck, you know, 30 years later.
Yeah.
But it was actually assembled in America. But today it's, you know, they're just, they were an equal with us, you know. In fact, they were our backbone in the financial industry. You know, all the money we've borrowed from Japan, if they ever called it in tomorrow, this country would be in deep trouble, you know. So today you can't hold, today, as you know, it's the Muslims and the religious war in the Far East. There's where our biggest worry is, not the Japanese.
Do you find similarities between the Muslim of today and their position in reflect to America as the Japanese were at the time of World War II?
Yeah, I'd say this is much more dangerous. This is much more religion. It's a religious war, you know. Whereas the Japanese didn't try to push their culture or their religion on anyone. This is different today with the what's happening over in Iraq, you know. Entirely different, much more serious, I'd say. You know, with all the nuclear bombs and what we have to fear today.
In terms of nuclear bombs, like it wasn't nuclear, but the atomic bomb. Now, at the time that was dropped, it's clearly one of the most dramatic days in world history that's happened to this point. How did you feel about it? Did you have any knowledge prior, or was it completely kept from you?
I think it leaked out in the Pacific Theater. There were people high up saying this war is going to be over very soon, and being one of the lowly officers, enlisted men, we didn't believe it, you know.
Mm-hmm.
But the truth was, they had the A-bomb, and I think within 5 or 6 weeks they dropped it, and that was the end, pretty much.
And how once it was dropped and everybody realized the actual destruction of it, what was your feeling? What was the feeling of your friends around you at the time?
In the military, we just were happy, you know, wanted to get out of there, get home. So we were very happy it happened. We didn't know the repercussions and the hundreds of thousands that were burned and met those awful deaths, you know. But the big debate goes on, should Truman have dropped it? And I guess, I believe he did have, because we would have had another 50,000 Americans going into Japan, trying to land and take the island, you know.
Well, like you said earlier, you expected that Pacific Theater would have lasted a lot longer.
Oh yeah, it would have. Yeah.
So.
Because they were starting to ship them from Europe into Pacific Theater and getting ready for a big push, you know. And but the A-bomb didn't need it.
Right.
So that was great.
So even today, knowing what you now know today in terms of the repercussions of the bomb, would you still say that dropping it was a good idea for Truman at the time?
Oh yeah, it was the right thing to do. He had a decision to make, and he made it, you know. And he was one of the last great presidents, in my opinion. Some of the ones we've had in the later years.
Yeah.
But Truman, he was a great president, and I think he made the right decision. Yeah.
Did you ever meet Truman while in the
No, never did. No. I admired him, though. Saw Roosevelt once. Roosevelt, we lined up on the tarmac, and guys were out in the sun for about hours, you know. And he came through about 30 miles an hour.
Breeze right through.
All I saw him and MacArthur was his Panama hat flapping.
Was did you have any personal dealings with MacArthur at all?
Oh, no. Jeez, no.
No, he was just.
Doug wasn't too popular.
No.
No.
Why so?
Well, he left, you know, the far reaches there, left this other general in command, Wainwright. But MacArthur, they used to call him Doug or something. But he loved cameras and everything.
Yeah.
He'd wade through. But then the Korean War came, and he and Truman locked horns. And Truman called him home, you know, when I think that MacArthur could have won that war over there. And his strategy was to cut him off and come around another way. And it got down to politics then.
Right.
You know, it was Truman against MacArthur.
But they, in your opinion, were they a good team in World War II?
Oh yeah, MacArthur. He's a real military man.
So very effective. So do you think his strategies would have been as effective, like you said, or more effective in the Korean War?
In the Korean War, he could have won that war, I think. And he didn't have a free hand.
Well, I mean, looking back now, we've talked about a lot of the negatives. What has been some of the positive aspects that's come out of the war for you, or that era?
Well, I think we saved the world for democracy, and beating Hitler and Mussolini, and we saved Europe. And now the only country sticking behind us is England. France, Italy, all the others are pretty much they're anti-American, really. You know, all they're thinking about is business and the euro and NATO and all the rest is pretty much they didn't give us much credit in the end. But I guess it was World War I, same thing. Went over there and saved the French and get out of there. But I don't know, this time there's no unified number of countries that are on the same side. You know, today it's a big global economy, global everybody in it for themselves, you know.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't. There never will be another united front like we had in the 40s.
No, that day is
Of course,
gone.
it was survival, really, you know, because we were depleted. You know, we had very few forces, no planes, small navy, but everybody punched in, and all the women went to work, and there was one big effort. You know, everybody made sacrifices. I don't think you get them to do it today.
So you would feel right in saying, though, that the World War II era was probably the last great era of American society.
Bokar wrote that book. He called it The Greatest Generation. You ever read the book?
No.
Oh, it is a great book, yeah. About all the sacrifices that the ordinary middle-class, blue-collar people, all the sacrifices they made and what they gave up. I lost a lot of friends, and I just got out of college in June of '41, and I took the physical to go into Quantico and be a Marine, you know, second lieutenant. You had to have the whole 32 teeth. I think I was missing 2, and I flunked it. And God was looking after me, I think, because many of my friends got out in June. By the time they got the 60, 80, 90 days training, they were right in the middle of that thing. Yeah. At Tarawa, and I had many in my class that were killed over there in those jungles. And my very closest friend was a kid named Eddie Larkin from Springfield. And he was a Marine pilot. He was shot down. Then he went back the second time. I said, Eddie, I was with him Christmas. I said, you've done your part. And he was a nice kid. He said, oh, the swimming's great over there.
Yeah.
I love the swimming. The poor guy never did come back, you know. But, yeah, they were, many of the kids, we had 2 in my class got the Congressional Medal of Honor. Yeah, one was a priest, Father O'Callahan, and another guy, Johnny Powers, he got it also. But, of course, everybody went in the service. Most of them went in the Navy, you know. My roommate went in the Navy, but many of them went in the Marines.
Did you, was there any resentment in between the different branches?
I don't think so, no. It was just, in those days, Danny, it was survival, really. You know, each family was just praying and hoping that whoever went from their family came back. It's the same way today with Iraq, you know. But I admire the kids today. There's no draft, and they're over there volunteering, you know.
Do you foresee another draft in the future?
I don't think so. I think about 30% would head for Canada. I don't think there's the patriotism today that you had 60 years ago.
Right.
You know, because probably people are too educated today, probably.
I think we're about, it's still going. It says it's still recording. I thought it was done. So you think education today is,
I think
on a world scale, has killed patriotism?
I think it has. People are, I won't say they're too smart, but they're too educated. They know what's going on. They don't trust governments today. Where, see, 60 years ago, the ordinary guy was blue collar, and very few guys went to college. Nobody had any money in the 30s to go to college. So they pretty much followed the leaders in the country, you know.
Mm-hmm.
And I think the leaders of those years, they had more ethics, they had more patriotism, more everything. Whereas today you got people stealing Enron and all the rest of them as much as they can, as fast as they can, you know.
Right.
I think people become cynical, and I guess you can't blame them, you know.
Mm-hmm.
So I think I'm putting this to sleep.
No, no. But do you have any, final thoughts in terms of World War II that you'd like to?
I think, like I said, the greatest generation and the job they've done, you'd have to go back to colonial times. What they did for this country would be comparable to the American Revolution or the Civil War, things like that. What we have accomplished, you know.
In a shorter amount of time, too.
Huh? Yeah.
Yeah.
And they did. World War II only lasted, our part of it only lasted less than 4 years.
Mm-hmm.
This thing in Iraq has already gone 4 years.
Just eclipsed 4 years, yeah.
It's, but people, it all goes back to love of country, patriotism, things like that, I think. That's why these kids today, you have to give them credit, because they're going in there and they're volunteering, you know. They're coming back with legs off and everything else.
God.
It's you know, I voted for Bush twice, but that was an awful blunder, I think, getting us into this thing. Or some people said, if he didn't get us in here, they'd be over here. They'd be more 9/11s. Well, you don't know that, really.
Mm-hmm.
It's conjecture.
So is the face of war for you changed? It's no longer going to be on a world scale, but now war in the future of today will be more, is the face of war today terrorism?
Terrorism is our biggest enemy today, you know. Just living here every day, figuring is there going to be a dirty bomb lifting, our subway system, our railroad system, or, the airlines. My daughter is flying up from Georgia today, and you worry about her till the plane hits the tarmac,
Mm-hmm.
Or like you the other day, went to Mexico,
Mm-hmm.
and you never know today with the terrorists, and they actually hate us. They've come right out and said, we're going to wipe you off the face of the earth.
Yeah, like the Christians.
There's other people saying, why can't we go over and diplomatically talk to Iran? How the hell are you going to take somebody who's walking up the street and he's going to try to kill you? It's unbelievable, It's a religious thing.
So in today's days and age, would you, you referred to the World War II American generation as the greatest generation. Is that the last great world generation at the same time? Is on a world scale, have people just lost the dignity and ethics that from now on it's just going to be a ugly, bitter world?
I think it's going to be every country for themselves, We get more money, more wealth, more everything. And there's people on the other side of the world that is dying every day, 25, 30,000 kids dying. And you can talk communism, socialism, but nobody's going to open up their pocketbooks and take care of, you know, the people that the have-nots, you know, not without being forced to. But I hope I haven't painted a wrong picture, dismal,
No,
pessimistic.
I think it's been very educational and very insightful.
Yeah.
I appreciate it tremendously.
Yeah, the Brokaw and the Greatest Generation, you know, the kids had gotten those bombers, and they'd put 500 bombers up there at a night, and it'd be 10% go down, just forming, be crashed, gone, and if they didn't get it halfway on the wherever they're going to bomb, half of them wouldn't get off either. So those sacrifices, they'll never be equal, I don't think.
Well, on that part, we'll conclude the interview. We appreciate and thank Donald very much.
Yeah, thank
for
you.
your time.
I don't mind, Dan. If I could help you out, fine, you know. Yeah. Hope you get an A on that.
Little added bonus. Thank you very much, Donald.